I was shocked by how violent and grim the Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 anime was. It was nothing like the regular Yu-Gi-Oh! Show that I grew up with. Although the normal manga of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also known to be much more darker than the anime. Can you imagine how different Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 is from the rest of the manga? I bet watching this video will blow your mind and make you see Yu-Gi-Oh! Completely different. If you are unfamiliar with the manga, that is. May the heart of the cards be with you, and let's see how different Yu-Gi-Oh! Really is. Joey's Gang. It's Yo-Yo Joey time! He not only rediscovered the yo-yo for himself, but also his old gang. They are currently robbing people with their yo-yos as weapons. And so that they leave Yugi and the others alone, Joey joins them again. Their friends are worried because Joey doesn't go to school anymore. They are thrown with bottles by his father at home when they meet him again in the gang. They see for themselves how Joey and his gang are stealing from people with their yo-yos. It's so bizarre! Who came up with the idea of using yo-yos? They are not exactly the most threatening weapon. As you can imagine, there are no yo-yos in the manga at first. The gang was a bunch of thugs who ganged up on people and took their money by force. Yugi and Tristan try to get Joey back, but they get punched by one of the thugs and then by Joey himself. They didn't give up though and came back for round 2, only to face off against a killer yo-yo. Yugi got kidnapped and tortured until Joey showed up and rescued his best buddy. He fought with the leader of the gang while Yami tricked all the others into a trap. To find out where Joey is in the manga, one of the gang members is taken aside and got intimidated. Good thing they did that and figured out where Joey was, because he wasn't going to let them get away with hurting Yugi, and he gave Weevil's twin a taste of his own medicine. Joey battled with the gang, got beaten up, captured and tortured with tasers. So far tortured that he was about to die. And actually, they even planned to finish him off. But then Yami came to save the day. He took a punch to the face, played a game with them, hung his puzzle up so that it dripped on a knocked out guy and woke him up, then shocked all of them with a taser through a puddle. Friend saved. After the Death Tea amusement park, the gang in the manga still had an appearance, and this time also here with damn yo-yos. They don't beat up people anymore to get their money, but they just let it rip and beat them with the yo-yo. Joey was pissed off, so he went with Yugi to an empty warehouse where the gang was waiting for them. Surrounded, the guy and Yugi can save themselves while Joey is surrounded by yo-yos. Except that guy turned out to be a traitor and they hanged Yugi as payback. They say they would kill him if Joey didn't join them again. But Joey is the baddest in person and walked through all the yo-yos like they were just yo-yos. Which they actually are. Although, if you can beat people up with them, they must be really heavy. He saved Yugi, grabbed his puzzle, and used it to catch the yo-yos and knock out some of the bad guys. The rest was like in the anime. Yugi made a circle so that the others fell down, and Joey kicked the leader's ass. The Death Tea amusement park. Mokuba wanted payback on Yugi, so he had him and Joey brought to his mansion, where he tried to poison them. Joey was the first one to get poisoned by eating something bad, and he had 30 minutes left to live. Trick recognized, eliminated, and so Mokuba had to eat the poisoned burger, which he did without hesitation. Respect. Yugi got the antidote for Joey, and they had some for Mokuba too, so he didn't die. The next day, they went to the tower to play more games. They found out that Kaiba kicked his own stepdad out of his company, and he killed himself by jumping out of a window. But Kaiba didn't give a shit. Gozaburo was a real jerk to Kaiba though. In the anime they said that Kaiba got adopted by beating him in the chess game. Which is true. But in the manga, Kaiba won by cheating. When they got there, they saw live how Kaiba had 3 blue eyes now and beat Salomon in a duel. He used holograms to scare him so bad that he had a heart attack, and Yugi agreed to play his game to make it stop. Tristan showed up with his sister's kid who wanted to help them out. So the games can officially begin. In the first round, they played laser tag against 3 elite soldiers. In the anime, Joey got hit and Miho went full blast on them. In the manga, they ran into Tia, who was working there, and the 3 elite soldiers had an unfair advantage. Their weapons were fake, and the enemy's weapons were so powerful that they could kill them with one shot. So they swapped weapons with Tia's, turned down the strength and made it through the first round. Then they had to pull some levers that all had to be activated, so Yugi had to use his brain to avoid getting crushed by a robot. In the manga, it goes on to the horror zone. They got strapped into a haunted roller coaster where anyone who made a sound would die, because the seats were fucking electric chairs. The game master couldn't scare them, so he tried to tickle them to make them laugh. And they did something else to Tia to make her scream. Mini-Me intervenes, shits on the game leader's lap, causing him to scream and shock himself. They got to the next attraction, the Killer House, where Leatherface was waiting for them. He was hiding somewhere inside, so it was like an escape room game. Get out of there faster than he can find you. But first they had to put their hands in a device that locked and almost chopped them off if Yugi hadn't solved the puzzle. As a reward, the exit opens in which Leatherface is waiting for them. But Leatherface was there, because the baby is a traitor, but is taken hostage, so Joey had to go save him by himself. The kid chained him up with Leatherface. It should be fair, I guess. The rules are simple. Everyone can choose a weapon and then fight to death. Leatherface of course takes a chainsaw, while Joey gets a tip from Yugi and goes for the candlestick. He was able to attach his handcuff to the door, which was torn out, and the candle fell into the tar, which heated Leatherface up a bit. He was just burnt alive. They still had to play the dice trap game, where they drew the friendship symbol on their hands first. Like in the anime, Tristan stays behind here as well. But so that Yugi plays another round of Capsule Monster against Mokuba next, Tia and Joey are taken hostage. Even though Yugi would play against him anyway. The game was just like in the anime. Then it was time for the duel against Kaiba, where Joey and Tia was still in danger from the bodyguards, while Salomon got to the hospital. They don't take hostages in the anime, so they changed it up and made Salomon disappear after his duel with Kaiba, so they had to go look for him and play a fighting game against some other guys, or else Salomon and Tristan would get buried in sand. In the manga, Tristan was way cooler because he surprises a bodyguard from behind and they can beat them up first, who were then completely withdrawn by Mokuba. The actual beginning. Season 0 must take place in a parallel world, so crazy and different it is. It was the prequel that started off the real Yu-Gi-Oh series. But actually, there's a seamless transition in the manga. After the Death Tea arc, there are some more very interesting short stories. Tia gives Yugi a love detector, which Yugi is very happy about, but it didn't work right away, only later when he needed it for a game against a teacher, and Tia realized again that Yami is the one she loves. The next story was about Joey, who went on a TV show to win 1 million yen. He didn't want to keep it for himself, but to help his dad out, so maybe he can finally have a decent father-son relationship. Joey made it to the final game, which would have been rigged if Yugi hadn't stepped in and helped Joey win. A game in the manga was monster fighting. And of course, one guy had to go too far and actually hit his opponent while playing, and then take the monsters afterwards. With a shadow game, it will be alright again. In the fight against the monster thief, we learn though that the shadow games has several levels. On level 1 you feel the blows that the monsters also get, where his chin already breaks. But then he kicked Yugi during the game, so level 3 kicked in and his monsters turned on him for being a traitor and he couldn't kick Yugi anymore. And is himself the monster who fights on the board and is smashed by Yugi's monster and dies. Then at some point the Bakura's Dungeons and Dragons arc, until it goes on with Pegasus. They didn't do the story with Kaiba and Salomon again like in the classic anime, because that was already in the Death Tea arc. So Kaiba is still trapped in his thoughts here and only woke up in the middle of the Pegasus saga. But not only was the first complete episode a rebuild from the final of Death Tea, but also the final of Season 0, in which they play Dungeons and Dragons with Bakura. Only here in the classic Yu-Gi-Oh anime, he didn't trip their souls in figures, but in cards, with which Yami then had to play. Which didn't happen in the manga. He didn't just pop up in the woods like in the anime, but he was with them from the start. So this isn't a parallel world, this is what really happened. Yugi, Kaiba, they both killed people. Capsule Monsters. Yugi's first match in a Capsule Monster game he gets to play in the anime because he was supposed to help another guy to get a chance with Miho. That didn't work out, so all his friends were sent to the toilet with laxatives, and with Miho they go to him to settle everything in a Capsule Monster game. If he wins, Miho marries him. If he loses, he would leave her alone for good. They draw their monster capsules, and since the machine was rigged, it looked really bad from the start. But Yami takes over again and was able to win the duel with a one-hit KO effect and traps the guy in a capsule. In the manga, he had a different opponent. It was none other than Mokuba, the Capsule Monster champ. Not only does he have the most awesome hairstyle, but so did his buddies. He wants to avenge his older brother and forces Yugi to play a game with a knife, a taser, and a machine gun. He just takes a machine from a shop owner, paid him some cash for it, and when they tried to take Yugi's puzzle away in the hall and he transformed, they all freaked out because they noticed how he changed. But Mokuba doesn't care at all. The machine was rigged here too, putting Yugi at a disadvantage. Perfect time to make a bet. If Yugi loses, the Psycho Mokuba cuts off one of his fingers. If Yugi wins, there would be another penalty game. The game went like in the anime, so that Yugi brings them all in a row and can destroy them in one hit. That also meant that Mokuba got punished here by turning into a giant Kinder Surprise egg, which was only in his head, but he didn't need to know that yet. Duels against Kaiba. In the anime, just like in the manga, one day Kaiba stormed into Salomon's card shop and wanted to trade for the blue eyes. He even offered a whole suitcase full of cards for it. But Salomon didn't trade because this card had a personal value to him. But Kaiba didn't care, he just stole it from Yugi the next day. In the anime, he was then first confronted by Joey and Tristan, who wanted to get the card back but had no chance against Kaiba's bodyguards. Then Yugi showed up, who already knew that Kaiba had given him a fake card back and not the original blue eyes. But come on, you can tell them apart easily. Those fake cards were super obvious back then. He knocks Yugi down with his suitcase and left him to his bodyguards, but then Yami took over and got rid of them, and so he had his first duel with Kaiba. In the manga, none of that with Tristan and Joey happened. Yugi went straight to Kaiba, also got to see the suitcase up close here, when Yami intervened again, and it went to the first duel. The first shadow duel, which barely faced Kaiba, even though the monsters came out of the cards. Yugi also summons his first monster, destroys Kaiba's, drops him to 1500 and says, but only in the manga, that the loser of the shadow game will experience something similar to death itself. Kaiba's powered up Minotaur then clears up a bit and chops off the mystical elf's head with his axe. She really lost her head there. And then he destroyed a bunch of Yugi's monsters until he went down to 500 life points and then finally can strike back with the summoned skull. Kaiba despairs again, but then cheats the stolen blue eyes out of his pocket and draws it by chance. He can summon it, but not really control it, because the soul of the card is attached to Salomon and thus activates its self-destruction. Yugi's turn, who can get back the blue eyes with Monster Reborn, and things look very good, since Kaiba's monster is much weaker. But then he uses Earth Splitter now, a card he didn't even play, but just activated and so splits the field, which makes Kaiba get away with the bruise. But without the blue eyes. Draw and sayonara! It was a little different from how it went down originally. Yugi got his blue eyes back and went straight for the attack and actually won the first duel. And like he said he would, he gave Kaiba a punishment that was worse than death itself. He trapped him in a cart and sent him to the land of the duel monsters, where they attacked him. But it was all good. It was just a genjutsu, a nightmare that Kaiba would have for a long time, but it also gave him the idea to make duel monsters holograms. A new invention, but it messed Kaiba up a bit. He kept having the same dream that he was being eaten by duel monsters. He wanted to get rid of them, so he wanted to get back at Yugi. So they had a second duel where he had 3 blue eyes this time. Kaiba didn't have 3 blue eyes at the start of the series. He was shocked when he saw one for real. He tried to get it from Salomon, but he wouldn't give it up. So he looked for others and found them from 3 collectors. One was in America, one in Germany and one in Hong Kong. But they didn't want to trade either, so Kaiba forced them and ruined them or worked with the mob, and one of them killed himself because of that. Kaiba really wanted the blue-eyed white dragon. The duel went like in the anime. Kaiba crushed him with his 3 blue eyes and then got beaten by Exodia. With the Mind Crush! He didn't just give him a nightmare this time, he blew up his whole personality by making his evil heart explode. He had to go inside himself and put himself back together piece by piece, which took him so long that he missed the start of the tournament on Duelist Kingdom. Miho. Miho was one of the main characters in the anime who was always there for her friends, even though she wasn't very smart. And kind of annoying. But still you could count on. She knocked out the Gods in Death Tea, and also it wouldn't work without her against Bakura in the final. Totally different in the manga. There, Tristan just wrote her a love letter and got turned down. Which was exactly the opposite in the anime, where a random woman tried to make a gift to the man, and the man wasn't even Tristan, but Joey. At least Tristan gave it a shot, and Miho didn't have much screen time anyway, but she's also very different, because here she's much more reserved and the politeness in person. And that's all for this video. If you want to see the first part of the sick differences in Yu-Gi-Oh!, then you have to click here. Also, I would really appreciate a like and a thumbs up, but that's it again from me. We'll see us next time, so take care my friends.